Oh boy, thank you, Sheila. I'm getting a glance of water because I can't. I see we're live. Okay.
Sir, it's hard. Thank you so much.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the City of Tyler Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for June the 1st. Our first order of business is to call the roll. Sheila, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Nichols? Here. Commissioner Landis?
Here.
Commissioner Swain? Commissioner Whitney? Commissioner Reed?
Here.
Commissioner Phoenix?
Here.
Commissioner Hudson?
Here. We have a quorum today. The Planning and Zoning Commission makes recommendations to the City Council. All items approved today will be heard by the City Council at its regular meeting on Wednesday, June the 23rd, commencing at 9 a.m. If you received a notice for this meeting, you should also have received a notice for the City Council meeting. Subdivision plats are approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission solely unless there's a request for waiver of escrow fees or construction. Only the City Council makes financial decisions. If any item is denied, the applicant has 10 calendar days to file a written appeal with the Planning Department. The appeal will then be acted upon by the City Council. If you're here to speak for or against an item and that item is called for review, you may call 903-363-0651, and you'll be placed on hold until that item is open for comments. When you are speaking, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Comments should be limited to 5 minutes or less, although extensions of time may be granted by the chair upon request. Let me just repeat what I think probably most people know is that there is a teleconference option for this meeting in addition to the meeting that's being held in person, and that would be available through the phone number that I gave earlier, 903-363-0651. Normally we have a workshop in preparation for our meetings, and the workshop for the next meeting will be June the 15th, 2021 at 1:30 in the Development Center, which is across the street, 423 West Ferguson, in the large conference room. And that meeting, like all of our meetings, is open to the public. The next item on our agenda is a consideration of the minutes from the last meeting, May 4th. Have commissioners had an opportunity to review those minutes? Any questions or comments or corrections?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from May 4th, 2021.
Second.
All right, the minutes have been, the motion's been made by Mr. Reed and seconded by Ms. Phoenix. Any comments or questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. First item on our agenda is a zoning item, PD 21-006, Brown Diversified Interest LLC, 421 South College Avenue. Kyle?
Thorani's gonna take over.
Thorani.
Gonna, yeah.
Thorani. You're still the best, even if I didn't see you in a minute. Thorani, thank you. Let's deal with this first zoning item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and good afternoon to everyone present here. It's good to see you all here after the long weekend. This is the item, this is a zone change request from RPO, Restricted Professional Office District, to AR, Adaptive Reuse District. This is a tabled item from last month. The applicant had initially requested the zone change from RPO to PMF to build a quadplex on the property Since then, the applicant has amended the request to AR, which is our adaptive reuse district, to allow for single-family or light offices only. The property to the north is zoned RPO, which is, has an office in the location, and the property to the east is zoned DBAC and RMF and C2, which is our downtown district, multifamily and commercial, but it's the location of a St. Gregory Elementary School and a cathedral center. The property to the south is RMF zoned and is in location of a duplex. The properties to the west are zoned R1B and is developed with single-family homes. The future land use guide identifies this property as single-family medium low density, and this would be inconsistent with the future land use guide. Going back to some history of the property was built in 1847 by Frank Bell and was the home of Martha Mosh Bell Jones. In 1857, some rooms were added to the front and rear of the house, and also in 1870, the house was remodeled and a porch was added to the front. AR, the request that they're requesting right now is intended to allow for the rehabilitation and reuse of residential buildings, not just in the historic properties, but throughout the city. This district allows the property owners with the flexibility to use the older homes for light offices so that they don't retract from the residential characteristics of the area, and also not allow heavier commercial uses on the property. Out of the 14 notices that were sent, 1 was received in favor and none in opposition to the current request AR, and staff recommends approval of the zone change from RPO to AR.
All right, thank you, Tharani. Any questions for city staff?
So Tharani, the number of notices, we had originally 14. Sounds like 13 of them have been rescinded, is that correct? And just 1 remaining? Is that right, or no? Have any of the protests been rescinded?
Oh, all of it, yes.
All of them have been
Right.
rescinded?
Yes.
Okay.
1 was in favor, so that's
1 was
still
in favor.
applies.
Okay, so then I heard wrong. I apologize.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions for city staff? If not, I do have 1 card on this item from Ashley Washman. Ashley, could you state your name and address for the record?
Hi, I'm Ashley Washman. I'm the Executive Director for Historic Tyler. My office address is 110 East Charnwood, 75701. I just wanted to thank you guys for your attention to this matter and hearing our concerns last month. And I just wanted to reiterate that the community, the community's concerns over this property. And I, again, have our petition that we posted online and received over 220 signatures in under a week's time. And I've fielded several phone calls and emails in my office regarding this house. So thank you guys for your time and attention to this, and we just appreciate you.
Thank you, Ashley. Any questions for Ms. Washman?
And I have this printed out also. if you want to take it.
Please do. Please leave that with us.
Okay.
We want all the paper we can get. That is the only card that I have on this item. I know there are others here in the room who might want to comment. If there are, this would be an opportunity for you to do that. No obligation, but all right. If not, would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion to approve PD 21-006.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the zoning change to AR, which is adaptive reuse. Any discussion or comments on this item? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item's approved. Thanks to the people who came here today who are interested in this item, and good luck. The next item on our agenda is C21-006, Ship Industries LLC. Tharani?
This is a request for right-of-way closure for unimproved portion of Kensington Drive. The applicant is requesting the closure to replat the right-of-way into adjacent properties, especially for parking for the property to the south. If you look at the aerial, Kensington Drive is a residential street with 60 feet right-of-way. It connects Inverness Drive to Pollocksy Drive. This right-of-way was dedicated to provide connectivity to the area. However, the site has physical constraints that could be cost prohibitive to the city. Looking at the site itself, it's a 20 feet deep with undeveloped property to the north. And the connection to the west, there's already apartments to the west, preventing that connectivity to Pollocksy Drive. There's RMF if you look at the map. And this is not a required connection. All of the other lots have access via streets. So out of the 5 notices that were sent, none was received in favor or in opposition to the request. And staff has reviewed the request, and also the traffic engineer has looked at it and had no concerns with that as well. And staff has reviewed and recommends approval of the closure of the right-of-way, subject being platted within 6 months.
All right, thank you, Thrani. I know everybody's had an opportunity to review this item and perhaps see it in person, and it's a completely undeveloped area. All right, any other questions for city staff? All right, I don't have a card on this item. Is there anybody here who would like to speak on this item for or against? Sheila, has anybody called in?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Absent any questions or comments, would the commissioner like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve C21-006.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve this item. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Zoning change is approved. Next is C21-008, LETC Ventures LLC, South Oakland Avenue, Thrani.
This is a request for right-of-way closure for an improved portion of South Oakland Avenue. The applicant is requesting the closure for South Oakland to replat into the adjacent properties. If you look at the property itself, to the west of the Oakland Avenue, currently Stanley's is using that for a parking lot. And the access easements would be provided during the planning process for the Union Pacific Railroad Company. Out of the 12 notices that were sent, none was received in favor and 2 in opposition to the request, bringing it to a protest calculation of 7.55%. And the opposition were concerned about the traffic and congestion on Beckham if the right-of-way was closed. And also they were concerned about the truck traffic in the area. Traffic engineer has reviewed this request and sees no concerns with the closure. Also, I want to mention that right now the property for the Union Pacific Railroad is being leased by Stanley's for parking for long term. And we see no concern with the right-of-way closure application. Staff recommends approval of this closure of the right-of-way being platted within 6 months, and also with access easements to provide to the Union Pacific Railroad at the time of platting.
All right, Thrani, thank you. Any questions for city staff? All right, if not, I have a couple of cards on this item. One is from Nick Pensis. Nick?
Hey, everybody. I'm Nick Pensis, 525 South Beckham, 757. Just here to answer questions. Anybody have anything?
You have anything to tell us about this item other than what the city staff is?
I don't really have anything to add. The street right now is basically just a shortcut that everyone takes, usually way too fast. It's kind of a danger to pedestrian traffic from folks that are coming from across the street to visit the restaurant. I just think as far as our plans to continue to improve the neighborhood and the community, that this would be a really big, crucial first step for us to do some of the other things we want to do for improvements.
Mr. Pensis, do you receive any 18-wheeler traffic or any deliveries down through this street thoroughfare?
Not one.
None? Okay.
None.
Okay. What about other 18-wheeler traffic and vehicular traffic, that kind of thing? One of your neighbors was talking about the ability to get his deliveries down through there.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. So.
Houston's probably the best route for that. I mean, I've been there for 16 years, and
Yes, sir.
I don't see truck traffic on that road. It hasn't been used as a spur for the railroad the whole time I've been there in 16 years, which is why I have an interim lease with the railroad, which is basically just holding it until it's cleared for purchase like the other two that we got. I don't see any truck traffic. The only traffic I see again is basically people just speeding through to get, to avoid the light, basically.
Okay. And so your intention is to acquire your portion of the right-of-way, obviously, close it down completely?
Eventually, we'd like to close it so that we can connect the two and have it be a softscape kind of,
Okay.
walkable, safe spot to park and utilize the facilities.
Okay, great.
All right, any other questions? Mr. Penzias, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Nick, just knowing you and you're creating this, I was wondering what LETC stood for.
Little engine that could.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. It's Stanley says our little engine that could, just always chugging.
Appreciate you.
All right, thank you for your time and presence here today. I also have a card from Paul Manzel. Mr. Manzel? Paul, we know who you are. If you state your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. My name's Norman Paul Mansell, and I'm born and raised here in this town. We have a property that is adjoining this property that's right across the street from the street. The street dead ends into our property, which is one of our main accesses to and from our property other than Beckham Street. So anything that comes on and off of our property would have to go to Beckham Street instead of Oakland or Reeves that's right in the corner there. And also Coburn's trucks will always have to go to Beckham or go down Reeves till it hits Donnybrook and go through town. Everybody has always used what Nick said was the shortcut. It takes all the traffic directly off of Beckham Street, and if they need Beckham Street, they go down the hill and get it at the red light. And this has been there for years and years and years. It's curbed and guttered. It's very smooth. It's paved, and the only reason to close this street is for his personal gain. There's no other reason to close the street. There's no accidents. It's nothing except he wants it for his parking to join the railroad property that he wants to buy from the railroad or has purchased. And he doesn't want to cross a street that he says isn't important. It's not used a lot at night, but during the daytime it's used a lot. And we are highly against it. And Coburn's, we talked to Coburn's head office, and we couldn't get to the real man who knew what was going on, and so he said he didn't know enough about it, so he couldn't say yay or nay or anything. He just knows that now there's something going on. So he said he just really couldn't make a comment. So that's
All right, any questions for Mr. Manzel?
So, Mr. Manzel, you're saying that this street closure would inhibit your ability to get vehicular traffic to and from your property, on and off?
Most definitely. The hospitals are doing all their development there. We're constantly talking to them about different pieces of property and doing development on them. And their main thing is access to and from.
Okay.
And this would kill the project. If you close that street, it kills one of our projects. It's future development. So we ask that we leave the street alone. It's been there for 100 years.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Manzel? Thank you, sir, for your time and presence here today. Those are the only two cards I have on this item. Are there other persons here who would like to speak on this zoning, the street closure, for or against?
Commissioner Hudson, I have Mark Priestner on the phone.
Good. Put him on, let's hear what Mark has to say.
Okay.
Mark?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can, but speak up as loud as you can. You're a little faint.
Hi, this is Mark Priestner with Planning Concepts. This is part of, in listening to some of the other speakers, the Manziel tract has direct access to Beckham and to the side street Reeves. This in no way impacts that property. This was part of an overall master plan that was done on the heels of the Midtown plan that the city has done in developing this area, making it more pedestrian friendly, and working into the uses that kind of incorporate the hospital and surrounding areas. The property that's adjacent to the railroad track is currently just an unimproved dirt area and then the street. So this would incorporate all of that into parking and making it more friendly, pedestrian friendly. The thing I want to point out is that when that parking is redone, there will still be access from the north to the south. It's not being cut off. It will just be through a parking lot rather than a street that's being maintained by the city as a parking lot. So, in order to start making all these properties tie together, what it does do is it encourages those to use the light rather than cutting through and trying to cut out, turning left and going north onto Beckham from Reeves, which has been, a traffic problem. So I think it's a great use. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Mark, thank you for your time and presence. Any questions for Mr. Priestner?
Yes, Mr. Priestner, you said that there will still be an opening that vehicles would be able to utilize, but it would be through a parking lot versus what is a street now?
Yes, there will be, part of it will be used. Okay, so Nick Pence's has the property leased from the railroad across the street, which has just been used as a storage yard. In incorporating and expanding parking to the back, what we're trying to do is relieve congestion up on Beckham by moving the majority of the parking to the back and the entrance to the back. We're trying to pull people off of Beckham. So part of it will be in right-of-way, part of it will be in Greenbelt, creating a more, you're basically turning the back of Stanley's into the front of Stanley's.
All right, thank you, Mark. Any other questions for Mr. Priestner? Certainly, Mr. Manziel, you're welcome to. While that's happening, can I see the property map again? It shows the lots, not that one. That one.
If they want to make that into a parking lot, they can make that into a parking lot without closing our street. And they said you can drive through the parking lot for the street, is what I just think I understood him to say. But now you'd be going through somebody's personal parking lot that has been a street for long as I can remember. And in my comment, I put 70 years, but I guarantee you it's been longer than a 70-year paved and curbed and gutter street, and with no accidents on this particular little intersection. And if there were accidents there, then we could find cause to close it. But there's not been any accidents, and it is a very good way to get off of Beckham Street. And if on and off of Beckham, and then you have the use of the red light at Houston and Beckham, which is the safe way to cross. And it's a good way, and people use it all the time to miss that red light also, to go to the west side or to get off of Beckham without going to the light, without backing up, stack to stack to stack in the back. And this will even back up more traffic if you close that street. I just don't see any good out of it, except it just gives him more parking, but he's got all the railroad there, all the parking up there. And so all he's gaining, or anybody would be gaining, is the use of that street. He has access to Houston Street, to his other two buildings. Now, his business faces Beckham, and naturally, he doesn't have a lot of parking on Beckham Street. I've offered to, I don't have anything against Nick, but I've offered to rent him my parking lot. He doesn't want to rent it. I've offered to, before he remodeled his building, tried to work a deal with him on our building, and he wanted to stay where he was. That's his prerogative, but I have nothing against Nick. Don't think I do. But this is for the good of our town, and we're talking about shutting the street off that's been there forever. No good cause except for personal gain.
Mr. Mansell, thank you again for your time and presence. Mr. Reed?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mansell? Mr. Reed has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mansell. Can you expand any more on your talks with Mother Francis in regards to their plans for your particular property? I think we need to see the entire picture here and what the impact is. Are you privy to the remainder of the information about it?
Yeah, I can't say anything right now, and I wish I could, but.
Which makes it tough. Makes it tough for us to see the whole picture. You understand?
I understand.
Yes, sir.
And
Okay.
I wished I could, but I just can't.
Understood. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a question for Kyle or Ronnie. With the understanding, and I heard Mr. Priestner say that they'll have a parking lot that cars can go through to utilize, and a legal street that a vehicle would utilize wouldn't get a ticket. But if you're going through a parking lot, in order to avoid a light or something, that's a setup for tickets. So my understanding of the closures, an individual can apply to obtain a closure. The property would be split between the two parties. But what originally was the objective of closures? It's for land that's not being used?
Yes, so the idea is that if there's any excess right-of-way or any right-of-way or streets that are no longer in use or are not being used for their intended purpose or originally anticipated volume, things like that. I will say this street actually used to be Beckham Avenue. It was the old where Beckham Avenue went into Houston before it was realigned. So there is that. It was a street that was more critical than it is perhaps now, in terms of access through that side of the town. But yeah, the purpose of a thoroughfare closure is to take a look at the existing conditions, the future conditions, as to whether that right-of-way or that street is still necessary to be a public street or a street at all.
Kyle, could we see the protest map? I've got a couple, we're taking some time on this one, but who owns lot 13A, just to the east of the Oakland Street? Whose property is that?
Oh,
13A, block 1, I think it's 13A. Maybe it's 12A, 12A.
That'd be Stanley's.
Stanley's owns that?
Yeah.
And who owns 10A?
That would be Mr. Ward, yeah. Jeff Ward.
Okay, Jeff Ward owns that one. And 9A? Who owns that? Jeff Ward owns that. And who owns 15?
That's the railroad.
That's the railroad.
Yeah, and all three owners have signed off on the application, and I believe they they will work out how the right-of-way is kind of divvied up between the owners and what kind of easements are needed to ensure access for all properties.
So Hal, you made the statement a minute ago that we evaluate the current condition and what it's currently being used for, and currently it's being used for a crosswalk to Stanley's and for parking for Stanley's, and not as a street, basically, right now. Is that safe to say?
Well, I think there's, I think at certain times of the day, that's true. Other times of the day, maybe used more for perhaps a cut through or some other, pass through instead of stopping there. But yeah, I mean, a large part of it is usually used for access to, without doing any studies or anything like that, but, the access to Stanley's and maybe the other businesses in there.
So then the request kind of fits what the current usage is. The request to close it kind of reflects what the current use of it is.
Yes.
Paul, just a second. Is there anybody else here who wishes to comment on this item, for or against?
The only thing I was gonna say is, Coburn, everybody goes to the warehouse in Coburn because they use this street. Otherwise, they have to get back when we come back around. Coburn uses that street as much as more than anyone.
Coburn uses Reeves as their access.
All right, the commissioners, any other questions or comments for city staff, or is any other persons present who would like to comment on this item? If not, is there a commissioner who would like to make a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Nichols, I'd like to recommend that we approve item 621-008.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
I think that's a vote of 4-1, if I got that right. Is that correct, Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
All right, so by a vote of 4-1, it's that item's, that street closure is approved. Next is PD 21-009, Mosaic Building Limited, 2573 Crow Road. Ronnie?
This is a zone change from NR to PMF, which is planned multifamily with the site plan NR as a neighborhood residential district. This property is located west of the northwest intersection of Crow Road and KPE Way. The applicant is requesting the zone change to develop single-family attached homes on that property. Property to the north is zone C2 and is undeveloped, and the property to the west is zone C1 and is also undeveloped. And the property to the east is a mixture of C1 and it's also located outside the city limits. And the uses are both commercial and industrial in that east portion. The property to the south is AG, which is also undeveloped. The future land use guide identifies this property as mixed use center, and this use would be inconsistent with the future land use guide. Looking at some history of the property, the original zoning NR was established when the property was annexed into the city limits in 2020. The zone change is now being requested because they want each unit to be platted in an individual lot and utilize a private way. So this zone change would allow for both of that, which NR would not allow. The site plan, looking at it, it proposes a gated subdivision of 76 single-family attached units with a density of 5.93 per acre, units per acre. The buildings have setback 19 feet in the front, corner 25, and a rear setback of 20, with the maximum height of 42. The separation between the attached buildings is 15 feet, and all other signage, parking, and landscaping would be as per UDC regulations. Of the 7 notices that was sent, none was received in favor or in opposition to the request, and staff recommends approval of this zone change from NR to PMF.
All right, thank you, Theron. Any questions for city staff? All right, I have one card on this item, Mr. Mitchell, Greg Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell, if you'd state your name and address for the record.
Greg Mitchell, 2026 Republic Drive. I'm with Benchmark Design Group. We're the project engineer for this case, and I'm just here to answer any questions you guys may have.
Thanks. Any questions for Mr. Mitchell?
Mr. Mitchell, the number of common areas is pretty impressive here. There's a large one across the front, and then there are small ones, at least 3 internal, and then another 2 at the very back. Are any of those intended for any connectivity, any future connectivity?
I'm not sure. I know the UDC requires I think it's 300 square feet of open space per dwelling unit. We ended up with 1,100 square feet per unit, so we're well over the requirement. As far as connection, I don't think there's anything planned.
Okay.
But it is kind of spread out throughout the neighborhood.
And one of those areas is, I believe, a pipeline easement.
Saw that.
Which, provides some, open area as well.
Okay. All right. That's my only question.
Mr. Mitchell, thank you for your time and presence here. Any other questions for Greg Mitchell? Again, thank you for your time and presence. Sheila, are there persons online that would want to comment on this?
No, sir.
Is there anybody else here who would like to comment on this item for or against?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve PD 21-009.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve PD 21-009. Any questions? Any comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item's approved. Next is PD 21-011, Junico, West Mud Creek, 8020 Holly Tree Drive.
This is a zone change request from R1A Single Family Residential District to PUR, which is Planned Unit Residential District with the site plan. The applicant is requesting the zone change to allow for single-family homes on that property. The property to the north and east is zone R1A and is undeveloped, and the property to the south is zone C1 and is also undeveloped, and the property to the west is zoned PMF and PXR and is also undeveloped. This is a part of the Holly Tree subdivision. The future land use guide identifies this property as single-family medium low density, and this would be inconsistent with the future land use guide. The only change from the R1A to the PUR with the site plan that they're doing is they're doing a gated subdivision with a private street. That will be the only difference from the R1A to PUR. All other development standards, signage, parking, landscaping, everything would be as per R1A standards in UDC. Out of the 4 notices that was sent, none was received in favor or in opposition to the request, and staff recommends approval of this zone change.
And the R1A was the last zoning that was done for this area, and you're telling us that those regulations will stay in place despite the change in zoning?
That is correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Any other questions for city staff? If not, I don't have any cards on this item. Are there persons here who would like to speak on this item for or against? If not, is there a commissioner who would like to make a motion?
Commissioner, Mark Priestner is on the line.
I'm sorry?
Mark Priestner on the
Okay,
phone.
I'm glad. Thanks for catching that. Mark Priestner, do you have any comments? Mark? Mark? Mark, if that's you, I'm having trouble hearing you. Would you try again?
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay. Yes, I just want to reiterate what you said. The only difference in the change in zoning is for the private street and the gated entrance. Everything else remains exactly as was with the R1A.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Priestner? All right, if not, are there other persons who would like to comment on this item, for or against, or electronically, or virtually, or whatever? I hear voices, but I don't know what they mean.
It might just be feedback.
Might just be feedback. All right, is there a commissioner who'd like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Reed, I'd like to make a motion that we approve PD 21-011.
Is there, motion's been made, is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Items approved. Next is C21-007, GOT Investments, GOT Investments LLC. Tharani?
This is a right-of-way closure for an unimproved portion of Massey Avenue. The applicant is requesting the closure to replat the property right-of-way into adjacent properties. It dead ends on that street at the intersection right there, Harmony Street and North Glenwood Boulevard. The staff has looked at it and sees no concerns with that, except they might have to provide a turnaround. Out of the 11 notices that were mailed, 2 notices were returned in favor and none in opposition to the request. Staff recommends approval of this closure of the right-of-way being platted within 6 months.
Okay, I'm sorry, is that a change in the staff's recommendation? Is that their original recommendation is?
I think the recommendation was to be made here at the meeting. And I just want to add on to that. We recommend approval contingent on a turnaround of some sort being provided.
Yep.
So you don't have that dead-end street like that.
All right, thank you, Kyle. It wasn't clear to me, and I'm sure it's clear to everybody else, but.
So, Kyle, as part of our motion, would we say also providing a turnaround as well?
Yeah.
As part of
yes, sir.
if it was in a motion to approve,
Right.
we would put that in there.
Right, that'd be part of the plat. They could provide maybe a turnaround easement or of some sort to allow that.
Okay.
All right, thanks everybody for clarifying that, because I didn't completely understand myself. I don't have any cards on this item. Is there anybody here who'd like to comment on this item? If not, would the commissioner like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve C21-007 with the condition that a turnaround be provided as well.
Second.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Items approved with the turnaround proviso. Next is Z21-016, Luis Cornejo, that's correct, 1501 Easy Street. Ronnie?
This is a zone change request from R18 to AR, which is Adaptive Reuse District. The property is located at the southwest intersection of Easy Street and Southeast Loop 323. The applicant is requesting the zone change to use that that existing home as an office. The property to the north and west is zone R1A, developed with single-family homes. Property to the northeast is RPO. It has an insurance office in the location, and the property to the southeast is zone INT, and is high school. And the property to the southwest, both of them are zoned AR, and immediate to south is a chiropractor's office. The future land use guide identifies this property as single-family medium-low density, and this would be inconsistent. As mentioned before, this would be used as an office, and there would be a common driveway with the chiropractor's office to get into that property. Out of the 19 notices that were mailed, none was received in favor or in opposition to the request, and staff recommends approval of this zone change.
All right, thank you, Thorani. Any questions for city staff?
Thorani, can you give us a little history about this property? I know that we've talked about previously, we've talked about access off of the loop, access off of Easy Street, thoroughfares, replatting, rezoning, the whole thing. So can you tell us a little bit about how we've gotten here?
Yes. Previously, I believe a few months ago, there was a application to change it to RPO, which was for Restricted Professional Office District, and the property was owned by a different person, and they wanted to use it for two-chair salon for commercial.
Okay.
And we did have a lot of opposition from the neighbors to change it to RPO, and also TxDOT had a concern because they wanted to have access off of Loop, and TxDOT had a concern about the driveway spacing. And so since then, the applicant sold the property, and now there's a new applicant, and they are planning to change it to AR, which would be compatible with the surrounding zoning in that area. And also for the TxDOT concern, now that they're going to share the driveway with the chiropractor's office, so that would probably alleviate their concerns as well.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right, that's helpful. Any other questions for city staff? I don't have an item, card on this item. Are the persons here who'd like to comment, or people virtually who would like to participate? If not, would a commissioner like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve Z21-016.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Items approved. Next is Z21-017, Clark Properties of East Texas. Thorani?
This is a zone change request from C1 Light Commercial District to R1B Single Family Residential District. This is a property that's located east of the northeast intersection of North Fletcher Avenue and East Oakwood Street. The applicant is requesting the zone change to build two individual homes on that property. The property to the north is zoned M1 and is undeveloped, and also it has a single-family home. The property to the south is zoned R2 and is undeveloped and also has a single-family home. And the property to the east and west is zoned C1, and it also has a mixture of both undeveloped and a single-family home. The future land use guide is consistent with, the request is consistent with the future land use guide. It identifies the property as single-family, medium, low density. And this is an addition to the north end, so it would implement the Tyler First goal of adding 3,000 households in the area. Of the 18 notices sent, none was received in favor or in opposition to the request, and staff recommends approval of this zone change from C1 to R1B.
Thank you, Thorani. Any questions for city staff? If not, are the persons here who would like to comment on this item for or against? Anybody virtually? Sheila?
No, sir.
Would there be a commissioner who'd like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve Z21-017.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve this item. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item's approved. Thank you for your patience. Next is Z21-019, Richard Brown and Camille, 5113 Timber Creek Drive.
This is a zone change. This is a zone change request from POD Planned Office District to PMXD1, which is our mixed-use district with the site plan. The applicant is requesting the zone change to allow for residential use on the property in addition to the daycare that's already in place. The property to the north, south, and west are zoned R1A and is developed with single-family homes and also some undeveloped lots. The property to the east is zoned PUR and R2, I believe, and is also developed with single-family homes and some undeveloped lots. Going back to some history of that property, the property was formerly in place of Apple Swim Fitness Center and was rezoned from R1A to PRPO, which is a planned restricted professional office district in 1997. And prior to that, Apple Swim Fitness, we used it as with the special use permit when it was in R1A. And after that, in 2016, a POD amendment was made, so the fitness center could be converted into a daycare and a preschool. And since then, in 2017, there was also some removal of 2 buildings and several parking sheds for renovation purposes was added. So that's some history. Right now, currently the property is used for stepping school, and it provides preschool and daycare services to children through 8th grade. What the applicant is trying to do is just to remodel an existing 2-story building that's on the property so that they could have an educational facility for the preschool at the first floor, and on the second floor to have a residential home for them. That will be the only change that will be happening in the site plan that you see over there, just to add that residential structure to the second floor. And this would cause the zone change to be PMXD1, because that would be the one that allows for both uses on the property. Out of the 35 notices that was sent, none was received in favor and 6 in opposition to the request, bringing it to 13.80%. And all of the applicants were concerned about the future use of the property, being it a mixed-use zoning district. And most of them did not have any concerns with the owner staying on that property, but they were worried about the future use. With regards to PMXD1, since it's a planned district, any amendment or any changes that needed to be made will have to go through the commission again and also through the council to be approved. And staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval of the zone change from POD to PMXD1.
All right, Thrani, thank you very much. Any questions for city staff?
Thrani, so the PMXD1 site plan is going to specify 1 single-family residence, or is it going to say single-family residences?
It's just 1 unit, one
Just
residential
one
unit. Yes, sir.
Okay. In the hierarchy of our zoning districts, where does PMXD1 lie and POD lie? Which one is a more intense use?
PMXD1 is the more intense use.
Is the more intense use?
Yes.
Okay. But any changes in building heights, any changes in use and occupancy, that kind of thing would have to come before the commission again, correct?
That's right, yeah. So the PMXD1, in terms of allowable uses subject to the approval, is more intense, but with it being limited to just what it currently is, plus 1 residential unit, it's not exactly, and limited to the same restrictions as POD as it is right now. That's not necessarily that more intense than, it's not the full intensity of a PMXD.
So the PMXD1, is it subject to the POD uses, or is it PMXD1 uses that it's going to be amended to as well?
I believe, subject to the daycare and the residential unit. So if there's any other uses that would come in, they'd have to amend it and come back to.
It would trigger.
That's right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed, for those questions. Any other questions for city staff? If not, I have a card from Dick Brown. Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
I'm Richard Brown, known as Dick Brown, or by the kids at Stepping Stone as Mr. to me. So, we submitted a request to build out a residence in the second floor of Stepping Stone School. And I've talked to 1 or 2 of the people that have opposed it. And my understanding is they don't oppose the residence at all. They oppose the fact that it looks like I'm opening up again to build condos or something on the property. And for those of you that were here 5 years ago, that was a very contentious item because someone tried to zone it for condos and all on the property. When we bought it, we zoned it POD with the specific purposes of having a child care center there, and I left the second floor of the main building vacant, thinking that at some time I'd build it out as a residence, and that's why I'm applying for a permit. I think if that permit had said, or the request had said, one residence on the second floor only, no one would have had a problem. But the fact that it's the way it's worded, it looks like it's opening it up again for condos or something in the future, and that seems to be everybody's concern.
All right, Mr. Brown, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Brown? If not, thank you for your time and presence here. I also have a card from Larry Fleming. Mr. Fleming, could you state your name and address for the record?
Larry Fleming, 1231 Waterford Court. I will reiterate what Dick said. I've been there for 32 years, and we've been through 6 owners of that piece of property, and these are the only people that have done what they said they were going to do. And we're all for it. So, you know, as long as they can't just start building condos, you know, of course, and that was an issue in the past. So, but we have no opposition. Our neighborhood does.
Great, Mr. Fleming, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Fleming? Thank you, sir, for your time and presence. And I'm going to say, I'm saving the best for last. Leroy Mallory. I hadn't seen you in 100 years. Come to the mic and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Richard Leroy Mallory. I live at 1208 Waterford Court. And to echo what Mr. Fleming just said, the way the place is being operated over there now is so much better, and our neighborhood is so much better with the Browns owning that Stepping Stone School. We wholeheartedly endorse what they're doing. We think it would be real neat to have the owner of the property living on the premises. It'd make it much easier for us whenever a tree falls, or Mr. Brown knows that property real well now, and we couldn't be happier with it, and fully support what they're doing. And everything around it is either in a floodplain or a floodway. I mean, it's already built out. All the way they go is up.
Mr. Mallory, thank you for your time and presence here today. It's good to see you. Are there any questions for Mr. Mallory? If not, are there other persons here or virtually who would like to comment on this item? If not, is there a commissioner who'd like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Z21-019.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve this item. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you all for being here, and good luck with good luck with your project. Next is Z21-020, Rentiera Rafferi and Martha Arellano. Did I get that close? Maybe no. I'm sorry. Thorani. I got that one. I got Thorani. Thorani, could you discuss this for us?
This is a zone change request from RMF multifamily district to R1D single family attached and detached residential district. This is a property that's located west of the northwest intersection of West Front Street and Herndon Street. The applicant is requesting a zone change to split the property into 3 and have 3 individual single-family homes. All of the properties, surrounding properties, are either zoned RMF or R1B and are either developed with single-family homes or undeveloped. This future land use guide would amend the future land use guide from single-family medium low density to single-family and single-family attached medium high density with R1D zoning. So the applicant is just building 3 individual, single-family homes. The only thing to discuss is the TxDOT has, since it's East Front Street, TxDOT had concerns with 3 driveways fronting onto that street, so they are going to allow only 1. Since all of the properties are owned by the same person, they will share the access with the 3 lots. Out of the 18, there's one more thing. Since this is in the north end, this will also help implement adding the goal of 3,000 households. So 3 more. Out of the 18 notices that were sent, none was received in favor or in opposition to the request, and staff recommends approval of the zone change from RMF to R1D.
All right, thank you, Thrani. Any questions for city staff?
Thrani, so as part of this, we wouldn't require one access since this is a straight zoning case. And so that would just come up at the plating process whenever TxDOT comments on the plat.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they already have submitted a plat for this, and TxDOT has made that comment that they'll have to share access. There's currently an access easement that that's shared by the property owner to the west through this property. So that would be the way they currently have access. That's how it would be, one access point.
Great, thanks.
All right, I don't have any cards on this item, or the persons here who would like to discuss this item or ask questions for or against in person or virtually? If not, is there a commissioner who'd like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Nichols would like to recommend approval of Z21-020.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve this item. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Items approved. Next is Z21-021, Francisco Manuel Jacobo Salas.
This is a zone change from C2, General Commercial District, to R1B, Single Family Residential District. The property is located east of the southeast intersection of East Earl and South Beckham Avenue. The applicant is requesting the zone change to bring the property into conformance. The property to the north is zoned C1, R1B, and is developed with single-family homes, and also is the location of auto parts. And east is zoned R2, developed with single-family homes, and the south and west are zoned C2, and has commercial uses and also undeveloped property. On that side, this future land use guide would be inconsistent with the future land use guide, as it identifies the property as single-family, medium-low density. The applicant is trying to add an addition to the rear of the property, and so that necessitated them to get a permit, and thus the zone change request is here. All they're trying to do is just change it to R1B to be under compliance. Out of the 16 notices that was sent, none was received in favor or in opposition to the request, and staff recommends approval of the zone change.
Thank you. It's not on the agenda, but my grandfather and my father used to live on East Earl some years ago. Excuse me, are there persons here who would like to comment on this item for or against?
I have a comment, just real quick, sorry.
Yes, Mr. Reed.
Thrani, is the current zoning by virtue of our old pyramid zoning structure? It is?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I want to further comment on that too. I think the ability for someone to get a building permit or sell their house or anything like that for residential purposes, I think that city staff should really look at possibly expediting or waiving some of those fees, because during my tenure here, it's come through and has slowed down people's processes and possibly even been a burden to them and a hardship to them as well. And so I would just like to entertain that formally. I know we've talked about it informally before, but I'd like to entertain it formally.
Second.
If there are no other comments or questions, or no one who wants to ask about this item, The question occurs on the adoption of a zoning change. Mr. Reed, did you make that motion? Or did we already make a motion?
I will though.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to change the zoning from C2 to R1B. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item's approved. All right, Thrani, are you doing the plats, or Kyle, or?
I am.
Okay, great. And these, the first, it's 607 or whatever we've got here, nine look like they're, we're going to have to do individually. They're not on a consent agenda.
We do have several plats on the, on this next section that are recommended for approval. If we can combine them together, that would be great.
All right, let's tell us which ones, go through the ones that you think can be approved.
The first one, F21.
Hey, Thrani, just hold the thing just a second. I've got some. I've got some cards from Stephen Freeman. Mr. Freeman, is that you?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go through these, the ones that you think can be approved, the plats.
The first one, F21074. Third, F21047. Fifth, P21020. 8, P21017. And 9, F21045. 5 items on the agenda is recommended for approval.
All right, and are all these items meet the city's requirements and for a plat?
Yes, staff has reviewed and all the staff comments were addressed and staff recommends approval.
Okay, and Mr. Freeman, at least one of these, P21-017 is yours, and.
Yeah, I have no objections to those that are on consent, and I'm just here for comments on.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Freeman? He has 4 items that are, well, he is here because F21-047 is one of those that's recommended by the staff for city approval. P21-017 is one of the ones that's recommended for approval. F21-045 is recommended for approval. And there's one, those 3 are recommended for approval. Any questions for city staff? Anyone here who wishes to comment on any of these plats? Mr. Freeman, would just for the record, would you come and state your name and address for the record?
Stephen Freeman, 12080 County Road 167, Tyler, Texas, 75703. I'm the surveyor of record on those 3 projects that we're recommending for approval that soon we're going to do on consent. So I'm going to list the numbers just so it's clear on my end. F21-047, P21017, and F21045.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Freeman? Is there any other persons who would like to speak on these items, virtually or in person? If not, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve F21-074, F21-047, P21-020, P21-017, and F21-045.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve those plats. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next, Thrani, I'm assuming that the city staff has issues with the others. Would you just briefly go through those that you have concerns?
This is Burke's Addition. This is a one-lot subdivision containing approximately 4.27 acres of land. It's located on the intersection of Old Noonday and Kane Street. This is RMF zoned property, and the purpose of this plat is to create just one lot. Staff is still waiting on dedication of right-of-way on the Kane Street, and also there is MSP street that's running through Town Park Drive. It's running through the northern end of the property, and it needs additional dedication for that as well. So staff recommends denial at this point.
All right, anyone here wishes to speak on this item? If not, all those, if not, is there a motion to deny?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we deny F21-063.
Motion's been made, and Ms. Phoenix seconds the motion. Any discussion?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? What's the next one, Ronnie?
It's F21065 Cedar Creek. This is a 41-lot subdivision. It contains approximately 34.88 acres of land. It's located at the north of the northeast intersection of County Road 178 and County Road 140. This is located in the Zone 2 of LATJ. The purpose is to create 41 lots. Staff is still waiting on water, sewer, and also some HOA documentation for the green belt that's addressed in the plat, and staff recommends denial at this point.
All right, Mr. Freeman, this is one of yours. Do you want to make a comment?
I was made aware, you want me to restate my
Sure.
name?
Might as well.
Steve Freeman, 12080 County Road 167, Tyler, Texas. Surveyor of record on this project. As far as with regard to sewer, we do have the septic plan, and I'm picking up after this meeting. We'll get the letter to city staff. I was under the assumption we already had water, will serve letter, but I guess it wasn't provided. Dealing with an engineer on it, so if not, I will provide it. I know we already have it from Southern. As far as, what was the other item? HOA, developers working on it, so we'll provide it once that's done.
All right, thank you for your time and presence. Any questions from Mr. Freeman? Staff recommendation on this one is to deny. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we deny F21-065.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to deny this plat. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Next is P21-025 Northwood Acres preliminary plat. Veronica?
This is a plan for 6-lot subdivision. It contains approximately 156.33 acres of land. This is located east of the southeast intersection of Farm to Market Road 848 and County Road 281. It's in the Tyler ETJ, Zone 2 of Tyler ETJ. The plan is to have a 6-lot subdivision and also future development. And it has to, this preliminary plat needs to show the future development on that property. That's why at this time the staff is recommending denial.
Thank you, Thrani. Any questions for city staff or other persons here who wish to comment on this item? If not, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we deny P21-025.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to deny this plat. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Plat's denied. Next is F21-073 Trinity Creek final plat.
This is a 31-lot subdivision containing approximately 25.96 acres of land. It's located at the intersection of Jacksonville Highway and East Gully Road. This is also in the Tyler, Zone 2 of Tyler ETJ. The purpose of the plat is to create 37 lots. Staff is recommending approval of this plat with the condition that the wastewater documentation be provided and also dedicate an easement for a power line.
So you're recommending approval?
Recommending approval with the conditions that both of these be provided. The wastewater documentation and an easement for a power line.
Okay. Any questions for city staff? If not, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve F21-073 with the condition that there is wastewater and an easement for a power line.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That brings us to consent plats, Group A. These 7 plats, is the city staff still recommending approval of all 7 of these? All right, we would just read through these, not just the captions so that we can.
F21070, F21071, F21066, F21067, F21069, F20094, F21043. All the staff comments were addressed, and staff recommends approval of these plats.
Are the persons here who'd like to comment on any of these plats on the consent agenda? Any questions for city staff? If not, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve consent plats Group A.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve consent plats Group A. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those are approved. Next is consent plats Group B, and is the staff recommendation to deny both of these?
Yes, staff is recommending denial based on the fact that some of the technical comments were not addressed.
Are there persons here who'd like to comment on these plats? Any questions for city staff? If not, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we deny consent plats Group B.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to deny consent plats Group B. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that brings us to consent construction plats Group A. And the city staff's recommendation is to deny all that, is that correct? All these?
Kyle will be presenting.
Yeah, I'll take
Kyle's
over.
going to do these.
Yes, actually a little bit of change on this one. So for consent construction plats Group A, or plans Group A, staff recommends approval of these plans on the condition that they comply with any technical review comments.
Okay. And how does that, can you tell us how that happens? Is there a time frame, and when would they comply with the technical?
So under state law, there is a 30-day requirement for, plans to be reviewed and receive any comments for any comments of deficiency. And so if the plan is not approved within 30 days, then or denied within 30 days, it's automatically approved. And so a lot of times these are the plans on the agenda can be approved if there's no issues or if they are complying with any comments that come up. And so after if it's approved with conditions and the applicant satisfies those conditions, it can be approved by staff after that.
Yeah, but after that, they would be denied. Is that correct?
If they're approved with on the condition that they comply with those requirements, so or with comply with any review comments that they've received by now.
Okay. Anybody who wishes to comment on these?
And how long do they have to provide the information after today?
Under state law, there's no requirement for them to provide it. It's just after they do provide it, it would have to be reviewed within 15 days or it's automatically approved. And so if the condition is that they are going to comply with those comments, then effectively they are approved after they correct the plans.
And if they don't comply?
If they don't comply, then they're not approved.
Okay.
It seems like it can go on indefinitely.
For real?
Yes.
Yes, it can.
Yes.
Very open.
So we, luckily we've been able to kind of work through these where a lot of times they may, today, all these are being approved with the condition that they do meet those requirements, but generally after today, if, once they're approved, they can be, signed off within, days or weeks.
But if they never meet the technical requirements, there's no formal denial, they're just not approved.
That's true, yeah. That's the same for plats too. There's no real way to deny a plat anymore. It's effectively tabled until it's gone. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right, are there persons here who'd like to comment on any of these construction construction plans? If not, would a commissioner like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent construction plans Group A, pending complying with technical review comments, and I'll name them out: IR 21-027, IR 21-026, IR 21-023, IR 21-029, IR 21-030, IR 21-031, IR 21-017.
Mr. Reed's made the motion.
Second.
Mrs. Phoenix seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Gosh, I can't think of a time I've had more fun. And our workshop is on June 15th, and we'll be across the street in the large conference room.
Yep. Just like old times. Yep.
All right, if absent any other business, we're adjourned.
I'd like to make a motion to be adjourned.
Okay.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. You just don't want the chair to adjourn you. You want to participate. Aye. Aye. Thanks to everybody. It's great to have Pamela here in person.
You don't like to hear my voice across the phone.
Second.
Thank you.
We're off the record, so let me just tell you, Beth Whitney